The Comanche Nation once stood as the most powerful force in America and one of the most formidable fighting powers in history. They fought off countless enemies and remained undefeated until the late 19th century. This is the untold story of the Comanche, the greatest Native American warriors the world has ever seen. You're welcome to History Empire Center. Please like and subscribe to help our community grow. Today, we often picture Native Americans of the 19th century as fearless horse-mounted warriors, and the Comanche embodied this image perfectly. But it wasn't always this way. Originally, the Comanche were nomadic hunter-gatherers, following migrating herds across the plains. Compared to civilizations like the Aztecs, who built magnificent cities, or the Iroquois, who developed intricate political systems, the Comanches seem primitive by contrast. They had no permanent settlements and at first no reputation for warfare. Everything changed in the late 1600s. When the Spanish introduced horses to the Americas, the Comanche seized the opportunity. They didn't just learn to ride, they mastered the horse like no one else. Over the next century, they transformed themselves from wandering hunters into the undisputed lords of the plains, forging an empire built on speed, skill, and sheer fighting prowess. All thanks to the horse. In contrast to the sedentary agricultural tribes of the East, the nomadic mounted tribes of the West significantly altered the dynamics of the region. The Comanche, originally peaceful hunter-gatherers, underwent a complete transformation into a formidable military force. Mastery of horseback riding shifted their cultural focus predominantly towards warfare. Consequently, Comanche society became quite restricted, lacking a religious framework or extensive social structures, and there was little to no manufacturing or artistic expression. From a young age, children were trained in riding, hunting, and combat, with their lives revolving around these three pursuits. The Comanches are often likened to the Spartans due to their singular dedication to warfare. They evolved into an unstoppable force of violence, engaging in conflicts with all who crossed their path, often emerging victorious, largely due to their ruthless tactics. A Comanche raid was a harrowing experience, characterized by the indiscriminate killing of male adversaries, including those who surrendered, and the execution of older children, while young ones were captured and women faced assault and murder. The Comanches practiced total war long before the establishment of the United States, and their might was such that they nearly eradicated several other native tribes. The Native Americans resisting U.S. expansion into the Midwest were not a monolithic culture, but rather a diverse array of nations sharing certain cultural traits. Among them, the Comanches were particularly aggressive and effective in their campaigns against fellow Native Americans, systematically displacing other tribes from the Central Plains and forcing them to seek new territories. Indeed, the Comanches nearly succeeded in annihilating the entire Apache Nation. The warriors ruthlessly triumphed over the less formidable tribe in a series of battles that compelled the desperate Apaches to seek protection from the Spanish. Numerous large tribes within the Apache Nation vanished due to these conflicts. However, the devastation was not limited to the Apaches. The Comanches also inflicted significant harm on the Pawnees, Osages, Blackfeet, Kiowas, and Tankawas, displacing them from their ancestral lands and resulting in the deaths of thousands. By 1750, the Comanches had established complete dominance over the plains, with other Native American nations acknowledging their territorial boundaries. The area governed by the Comanche was referred to as the Comancheria by the Spanish, and it expanded at an extraordinary rate. Following the transformation of their society into a highly mobile military force, the Comanches began their ascent to power as the sovereign rulers of the plains. Over approximately 150 years, the Comanches consistently expelled rival tribes, conquering territories and subjugating those they did not kill. When American settlers began to move westward and encountered the Comancheria in the 1820s, it was vast, encompassing around 250,000 square miles, including regions that would later become Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Texas. They also had subordinate tribes with around 20 other groups recognizing Comanche dominance. Historian Pekka Hammett-Lyon posits that this status elevates the Comancheria beyond merely being a Native American tribe or nation. It constituted an empire. They conquered territories, integrated various ethnicities and cultures, established their own political and military frameworks, and negotiated as a unified entity. In fact, the Comanche Empire was more formidable and advanced than many contemporary European empires, which is why the colonization efforts of the Spanish, French, and Americans faced significant obstacles whenever they encountered the Comanche area. A significant aspect of U.S. history is the frequent omission of the conflicts between the Comanche tribe and the United States from the category of wars. However, it is important to recognize that the Comanches waged a prolonged conflict against Texas that spanned nearly 4 decades. This struggle began during the period of Spanish governance over Texas, persisted through its time as an independent republic, and continued after its incorporation into the United States. The Texas Rangers were established partly to protect settlers from Comanche attacks and quickly adopted the total war tactics employed by the Native American warriors. For many years, Texas was unable to subdue the Comanches, who even managed to extend their territory into Texas multiple times. It was only after Texas became a state and President Ulysses S. Grant prioritized the defeat of the Comanches that they were ultimately pushed back, leading to a series of events that resulted in their final defeat in the 1870s. In 1836, a woman named Cynthia Ann Parker was abducted by Comanche raiders. She was integrated into the tribe, eventually marrying and giving birth to a son named Quanah Parker in 1852. By the time Quanah reached adulthood, the Comanche Nation was nearing its end, and he was poised to become its last prominent leader. As a young warrior, Quanah embodied the bravery and ferocity of the Comanche people. Notably young for a chief, he orchestrated a series of aggressive raids against American forces in 1871 at the age of just 19. In 1874, Quanah assembled 300 Comanche warriors to launch a decisive attack on American forces encroaching upon the Comanche area, aiming to repel them permanently, as the Comanche had historically done. They targeted a trading post known as Adobe Walls, where approximately 28 hunters had sought refuge. Contrary to expectations of a swift victory, the encounter devolved into a protracted struggle. The siege endured for 5 days, concluding with the retreat of the Native Americans. Nevertheless, the Comanches persisted in their raids and violence, prompting American forces to pursue them, destroying their supplies and killing their horses along the way. This significantly weakened the Comanche Nation, leading Quanah to surrender with his remaining warriors and agree to relocate to a reservation. Quanah emerged as a respected and effective leader during peacetime, dedicating the remainder of his life to serving his people as the chief of the Comanche Nation. By the 1870s, the Comanches were nearing defeat at the hands of American forces. Several factors contributed to the U.S. newfound success after years of setbacks against the Lords of the Plains. The Civil War had equipped the U.S. with a seasoned and modern military force, while American troops systematically destroyed the Native Americans' main food sources. Additionally, President Ulysses S. Grant was resolute in his mission to dismantle their power permanently. Another significant factor was the impact of disease. Like many Native American tribes, increased trade and interaction with U.S. settlers exposed the Comanches to illnesses such as smallpox and cholera, for which they had no immunity. 2 major epidemics in 1816 and 1849 halved the Comanche population. Interestingly, the Quahati Band, led by Quanah Parker, remained a formidable fighting force in the 1870s because they had consistently rejected peaceful engagement with settlers. By avoiding contact with the westward-moving Americans, they escaped these devastating diseases, positioning them as one of the few remaining Comanche bands capable of resisting the U.S. expansion westward